Saying good morning, people. On the health policies, we are good there. Just like most other ministries, policies are fantastic. Shida ni implement. Na sana sana the person in that position is one that usually has the problem. So that's where Ichimuntu feels that we go wrong and drop the ball on that particular issue. Let me see another tweet coming in right here real quick. We have, where is that? Simon Korenga saying, I agree with Dr. Njoki. I also love the way she's articulating things brief, sober, and to the point. Right there, Leki Plangat saying, good morning. Let's discuss these big issues of the day and make sure this great country of ours prospers every single time. Okay, we hear you, Leleki Plangat. Keep those tweets coming in. The hashtag, of course, is K24 this morning. We'll move it right along to the Star. Front page of the Star. Lawyers, politicians probed over Somalia. Speaker rules that 11 MPs who met President Farmajo did not break the law. State wants to know, however, what links Somali leaders have with Mogadishu. Let me come to two parliamentarians here who luckily have actually been on duty and have traveled while being part of this particular show. Honorable Amisi, Honorable Kioni as well. Did you have to get clearance before you traveled to Spain, or you traveled to Germany?
No. I think it's, as the Speaker says, a matter of civility, that is just a courtesy to inform, but it's not really a legal issue that there is a repercussions of not informing the Speaker, or is it a not verbal to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because it is in their own capacity. They are not under sponsorship of the Parliament. They do not use the government resources. Maybe as a matter of courtesy, because we are at a quagmire between the Somalia and Kenya, they owe us maybe an explanation to maybe what, was it an official invitation from the government, of which now the Minister of Foreign Affairs ought to have been informed. But if it is a private visit, members travel privately every other day. Right. You cannot gag people from traveling. Only that we become, as I said, apprehensive, that now we are at a point where we are not so much into good terms with our neighbor, and any delegation of that level going there, it will put the whole country, anticipating what could have been the cause of this meeting. But you see, again, they could have just traveled and come back silently. Nobody will have known. Had we not, caught up in this newspaper that so and so have traveled and we need an explanation. So the reason is, why did the agency come in? What was the purpose of the agency, telling Kenyans that we are investigating, or we want explanation? What was the origin of their coming up before Kenyans and even stopping them at the Wilson Airport or JKIA to ask what they were up to and what they are carrying? So did they have intelligence? Because there must be a reason for everything. You cannot just come and stop somebody when he's arriving from abroad. You must have had intelligence that this person arriving, but he has, is not up to no good for our country, or is up to good for our country. And remember, the same team also met the president over the same issue. And according to them, in their own words, that the president said that you are a leader and you can also engage with your counterparts. So we do not know where is it an oversight of the other agencies? Because if you come out in public, and you see, you make even the public be worried for maybe no good reason, that people have gone and we want to know what they're up to. Like when I was in Spain, it was on a private visit. I didn't need to inform anybody. Yeah, and because I'm using my own finances, I'm not using the funds from the public, so I did not owe an explanation to the Speaker nor the Minister of Foreign Affairs, but it's a courtesy. Probably even for protocol purposes, you inform. Unless now when you are on parliamentary delegation that is approved by the Speaker. But I think what is the sensation about this visit, particular one, as much as it was private, which to me, I don't think it is in between private and public, because you are engaging a foreign president, and at a time when we are not so much into good relationship with the country. Now that makes it a bit sensational, but any other time, I mean, members travel on a daily basis.
Kioni, I'll come to you as well, because as this happened and as they were arrested at Wilson Airport, there was also talk of the standing orders as to how they're supposed to happen.
They were stopped, not arrested.
They were taken in and then released later on. The 11 MPs, they were actually released on that particular one. There's talk of how you're supposed to actually notify the clerk where you're going and for how long, which address they can get you at that particular area. So if this had been put down on paper, how does it become now a question of at your discretion? You can say it.
No, and the standing order, I think number 260 actually requires you to do exactly what you have said, but it is just like the speaker said, it's not that you can be sanctioned if you don't do it. Yeah. But it portrays you in good light, a person who understands that he is holding an office, and when you hold that kind of an office, some kind of mannerism is expected of you. You cannot disappear from the scene for 2-3 weeks and nobody knows where you are. You are likely to cause anxiety in the country, and again money will be spent looking for you, because you are not just an ordinary person, you have a responsibility that has been given to you. That's why standing order number 260 is there, and it is used by members of parliament who and you will see quite a number of, I don't want to say that, but some of those who've been in parliament for a while will always just do a call to the speaker and say, on a private visit, going to Spain, that kind of thing. But again, you will not be sanctioned if you don't. But if you notice, the communication that was done by the speaker was like saying it was not a parliamentary thing. These are Kenyans. If you have something that you want to do, now you are allowed to tell the agencies, deal with it. That, to me, was the indirect statement that was so
you feel he was washing his hands off this particular one?
He did, clearly. He certainly did, and did it from his official position. But I also want to say that it can't just escape our attention. You know, you can't just take it that way. Somalia, Jubaland, Somaliland are countries that we have difficulties with. We have our army in those countries. Young people are dying daily trying to create some order there so that we can also remain peaceful. And as elected leaders, you need to have all that in your mind before you do something, even if you're not being you're not being stopped by any provision in the law. And I personally was like, how can they do this? Even, that's what I said, how can they do this? How can they just go? And again, like the speaker said, if they really wanted it, why again go from the same community? You have not brought others to make sure that any suspicion is allayed. I have served as a member of the Foreign, we call it Defense and Foreign Affairs Committee. That's what we used to call it before the new constitution. And this is not a very innocent, cannot just be taken innocently by the security agencies. And I would expect that they will be asked a few more questions. They have invited themselves to being monitored as they move around. Those are things that follow them. And I also want to say that even, there's something that happens in Parliament quite often. And I said this on the floor, I want to repeat it here for the young Kenyans. When you see parliamentarians going through the vetting process and saying this person is fit to be appointed the CS for health, like we did with Mutahi Kagwe, it may look like an idle process, but you only need a sentence from NIS to say this particular person traveled to that place while we were in this scenario without having explained. Just that sentence. And there will be a huge debate around your appointment, and you could easily lose out on that appointment. You can very easily lose out on that point. If people seated there have become suspicious of what were you doing, let me say this as I conclude. Before our young men were sent into Somalia, I was in the defense committee, and the man in charge of the army then, if I just put it that way, in Kenya, told a member in our committee, but we get concerned about your thoroughness and your details on the happenings in Somalia. You seem to be knowing more of what is happening in Somalia, sometimes even ahead of our system. A very telling statement. And what we were trying to do, out of that statement, we could not do. We were actually being told more than just that statement. So these visits are not good for you as a member of parliament. They may be, from where we are, all of us from this other side of the country, we wonder whether they are innocent.
Njoki, they say that the president had told them that they can go and find solutions for that particular area in northeastern Kenya. They can have dialogue, and that's what they did. They went to the president. There had been talk of them meeting intelligence officials in Somalia. They said the only person they met was President Farmajo there. In fact, they are back with a message for our president from his counterpart in Somalia. Yet, as this happened, we're not sure, as Caleb says, whether it was in the private capacity, if they went as a parliamentary delegation, and why, if it was indeed that, why they were arrested or apprehended at Wilson Airport. At this particular point in time, where there's clearly our relationship isn't as rosy as it should be with the disputes we have between us and Somalia. Where do we go from here? Because they're sticking to their guns, and they're saying that this was actually what the president called for, and you went and reached out to find solutions for our area.
I think I want to speak to two things. One is, again, due process. I'm a fan of due process. Due process must be followed at any given point in time. When there are factors that affect how due process is going to be exercised, these factors need to be out in the public as regards how are we going to move forward based on X and Y and Z. If it was any other diaspora, we would not be having this conversation at all. And I think that's part of what the speaker was alluding to when he said that citizens in their own capacity, and again, Mheshimiwa said in his own capacity he can go and do X and Y and Z. They can issue a note verbal if they want. If they don't necessarily do it, it's not a problem. For me, if this is going to become a problem as regards visiting particular places, then that needs to be said. However, this country has a very, it's not just as regards the conflict and at the border. Our border with Somalia is a very porous border. We've had difficult relationships for a very long time, and those difficult relationships have been affected by people on both sides of the border. It's not just a thing of the Kenyans are victims or whatever. It's complicated. And not only that, we have Kenyans of Somali origin. They are Kenyans and they are Kenyans. You know what I mean? And that they're still of Somali origin, and they cannot deny the fact that they're of Somali origin. And we have several instances in this country, and Kasarani comes to mind, where we have treated Kenyans of Somali origin and even Somalis terribly as people. We've flouted their human rights. We make it very difficult for Kenyans of Somali origins to get documents in this country. You know, things like that. So there's all of these factors that play into the way these people were received at the airport and the publicness of that reception. Because again, when you speak to people of a certain caliber, to the way leaders are treated, if it was questions for leaders, there's a way that those questions for leaders would be addressed. But then there's a particular way in which these ones were handled. And so for me, what I would go back to is to see this entire conversation in the context of everything, in the context of the defense conversations, which of course are vital to peace and security, in the context of our relationship with Somali people, not just at leadership level, but as Kenyans, and what we imagine Kenyanness to be, and whether that excludes people of Somali origin or not, regardless of the things that have brought us together or taken us apart. And again, due process as regards traveling to certain areas that are of particular intelligence and national security interest. So when we look at all of these things woven together, the way forward will become a little bit more clear.
And then again, maybe in addition, due to our volatile situation with Somali, you of course expect a lot of intelligence gathering, and that's why I said there must be something that informed our agencies to, you know, get apprehensive of this delegation. But there is a thin line between our intelligence information and how to make it now a matter of legal process. Because it's just like in corruption. I mean, most of these corruption cases, you can only prosecute them by intelligence information. Otherwise, these are well choreographed, big monies are never stolen by people on the streets. They are well choreographed, and they close each and every hole to a point whereby evidence is not very easy. Just physical evidence, not very easy. You only rely on intelligence. And now, in our system, I don't know whether it happens in all other jurisdictions, but in our system, we have some kind of a loophole that the intelligence will say, yes, we have intelligence that these people have committed a crime. But how do you make it a matter of legal process? How do you translate the intelligence information? Because I may have intelligence that Mheshimiwa the two mheshimiwas who are in this room. But I cannot make it a matter of legal process that what evidence do I have, because you protect the source of your information. That's how they are planned. You do not say disclose. In fact, in the working of intelligence, you rather die than say who has told you that information. Right. So how do you make that a subject of legal process when you are even hiding the evidence? Okay. Okay. So that is a thin line that you, yes, have information, but I cannot make it, you know.
When we were doing the NIS Act,
yes.
That debate was there in Parliament, and quite a bit. I think it was 10th Parliament again. And we denied them the opportunity to prosecute, or the right to prosecute, because we thought they will misuse the intelligence information. So there is a way of getting it to where we want, but it is a question of, at that time, people thought we are not yet there. Yeah. People will misuse this for political you know, gains and such. And those suspicions exist in virtually all our, you know, like now, just like Dr. has said, even as we are dealing with this issue, which I really think it was a wrong thing for our colleagues to have done, you now see, instead of us being able to deal with it, the community will come and say, you have always treated us wrongly. So they quickly go and hide behind the community. And even when you want birth certificates, you don't give us. When you want IDs, we take longer than anybody else. And that alone, those statements then make officers hold back. In the process, a law could get perpetuated and we could find ourselves in the deep end. So I think we still have some work to do.
Okay, I want us to move to our last issue of the day. It's still on the Star, in the front page right there. Shame of stinking Nairobi City. Yesterday, Nairobi residents, of course, different parts of the city sprawled with garbage, and people are asking what really happened here. This coming at a time when, of course, some functions have now been handed over to the national government, and as Daktari says here, due process, due process, due process, there's actually talk of someone who's trying to challenge this particular handing over of these functions to national government, saying adequate public participation wasn't done. So let's talk about this particular scenario now and where we are, because as we spoke about this over and over, yes, they've gone to national government, but if national government doesn't deliver, how do you play the oversight? How do you follow up on that? We know PS Sunkuli is now in charge of this particular, those four functions, but how do the MCAs now summon Sunkuli? I want to say something that speaks directly to the question that I asked Mheshimiwa earlier, as regards if they're going to sanction a ministry, would they sanction everything? And he very rightly pointed out that they would never sanction money that's for service delivery to Kenyans. They would sanction money that's for administrative function. Now, these types of kerfuffles at the top, as regards, I don't think Kenyans really are interested in who is in charge of what. It is our services being delivered. We shouldn't have to suffer the nonsense of handing over. If we were in a hospital, for instance, and this is another daktari, and I'm taking care of the patient, and then I hand over to the care of this other person, if the patient suffers in the course of that handover, whose fault is it? Do you see what I mean? Right. Nobody should have to suffer this sort of thing. Right. And for me, I don't think this is a function of the handover. I think this is a function of something that was already wrong from before. Right. I wouldn't say that. And that one of the things I've always said about people that take care of sanitation, and the jobs that they do, the very vital jobs that they do, the people that clean toilets, the people that do X and Y and Z. And I think, was it in Murang'a, I think, where there was a case of the people who were taking care of sanitation being treated very badly, and you know, they striked, and they striked in a way that they knew was going to hurt people. Right. And it did, you know. And so this kind of thing where somebody is supposed to be delivering these services, and that again, garbage collection in this city is not just a public function, it is semi-privatized. Right. Somehow with the estates decide who's going to deliver services where, you know, so there's all these other things happening where we have like common area service and then like the gated spaces services, and that all of these things are different, and that Kenyans are paying 200 shillings here, you go to the supermarket and you buy garbage bags for another extra money because you're not necessarily being given garbage bags here. So there's multiple other things going on with whoever is delivering these services at multiple levels. Right. And that the net effect is what we are seeing here, and that you're not going to find one issue
it's multiple small things.
Right.
And that for me, it always begins with the dignity of the people who are supposed to be doing some of these things.
So it's from the ground going up?
Yes. If these people are not being taken care of, the ones who are doing this work, then they're not going to do it, and rightfully so. And so then this is going to inconvenience everybody, and not just like as an eyesore or something smelly. It also has the very deep public health repercussions. You know, children passing, water, disease spread, etc. And that for me is the foundational problem. It's not the handover of, because we shouldn't have to suffer a handover. If I hand over to somebody else and we're both taking care of a sick person, the sick person shouldn't feel the handover because we handed over for a reason.
Okay. Kioni, I'll come to you on this one as well, because as we rightly put it, the handover has happened. But now when you see such instances moving forward, if anything were to happen, if the ball were to be dropped in any of those 4 dockets that are now national government functions, is the Nairobi County Assembly supposed to summon?
I think one of the things that if we have a minister, CS, in charge of the function that was handed over, then there is a parliamentary committee that should sanction or should summon that CS to give an explanation. And I think we would rather be dealing with the problem and then the process is later, because you don't want this to continue. And certainly there are many people who are not happy with what has happened. And you respect these kind of disruptions from time to time. But I would expect that the functions that were handed over would fall squarely within the mandate of departmental committees within Parliament. Those on roads, they have the committee on roads. In the issue of environment, I would expect the committee on environment to weigh in and get help in getting a solution. So I know that is another uncharted area. We have to really understand when this handing over has taken place, what really happens. But I think the immediate thing, what I think should happen is that Parliament, and I have had 1 or 2 here saying that this is now within my mandate, and maybe that is also why the Senate speakers told the other committees in the Senate, hold on before you get on discussing these issues. Right. But I think the thing is that it is an area that has not been tried before. So it's also, I think we are running on it as we move on. What I would want to say is to commend the President for having stepped in. These things were coming. I wish Murwa was with us today, because last time he kept telling us that things were moving on very well in Nairobi. We are the ones who caused, who disrupted the smooth flow. But I think it was important for the President to have moved in at that point. What is little, and I almost understand why he's calling the MCAs to State House, and perhaps for more than what I imagine, is if we now impeach the governor, we may end up with a very difficult scenario. Perhaps what the executive is avoiding, a by-election, because we don't want to spend our money in that way. So that must be given another solution. But as it is, I think we must do the first things first, and it's to ensure that the streets are clean, the jams are being cleared. We can still continue doing what is expected of us. If the coronavirus is with us, how are we going to deal with it? And we would expect that the national government will have, we cannot, if we are hit by coronavirus, it will be very difficult to say, oh, this is a county function.
Let me get to
that one is, so we need those who are in the offices in positions to do what is expected of them. Okay. Somebody must do that, and I believe it's the national government.
Caleb, I'll come to you, because immediately after the functions were handed over, as Kioni put it, the MCAs were called to State House. They had a meeting on the impeachment motion that had been put on the floor of the Assembly, or was to be put on the floor of the Assembly. And some people are saying this is the executive playing both delivery and politics in the county. And is this a precedent they should be forming? Because right now, it's happening in Nairobi. Next time, it will be in Trans Nzoia. And I mean, this happens in an afternoon. Before you know it, functions have been handed over and we're moving on. How do we stop this from being a precedent set as we move forward, because at a political level as well?
Yeah, it wouldn't have happened. The Sonko behaved like a good politician and a good leader that Kenyans believed in him. Because remember, I said he has had his Sonko rescue mission or team. Now we are talking about Uhuru rescue team. Now Uhuru has come to rescue the county. because this is the center, it is the epicenter of all the activities in our republic. We are at a time when Kenya is bidding for the the UN seat, non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council. So we cannot afford to have our capital city, because people will be looking at Nairobi as you are bidding there and campaigning. They are also Googling and finding out which this country that wants to get our support. So it is a very difficult time, and I think President, whether it is within the law or not, but I think he's doing the right thing to just make sure that the county is running. It has not stagnated. But going forward, I believe that, and I think this thing should be even part of the BBI recommendation, we need to hold especially the governor aspirants and the presidential aspirants. We need to make it criminal for people not to stick to their promises. That you come tell Kenyans that, the issues that have been at the center of campaigns has always been garbage collection, waste disposal, traffic snarl out, and every aspirant will come and say how we're going to shape Nairobi in terms of wastage and traffic snarl out. Several years down the line, nothing happened. They start partying all over the world.
But
so they completely forgot the promises.
Then that I think should happen all the way up, from the MCA's promises to the MPs,
but
any
specifically where the economic power lies. I mean, we do not need to play with Kenyans going henceforth, because a president just stands up and say, I will give free laptops, and you don't know how you will do it. I will, construct, I don't know what, there'll be free primary, secondary education. You have no plans whatsoever on how you are going to commit to that. When you see Obama say that you'll have Obamacare, we'll take care of the health, we'll tax the rich, he actually follows that promises. Even Donald Trump, he says that we'll make America first. He actually makes it America first. You have to stick to your promises you made to the 190. Jubilee came and told us we are going to have all these nice things. But they, down the line, they have gone to Big Four agenda. It was not even part of their promises. You have no idea how you are going to implement what you are promising to Kenyans. Now, we need to make it criminal that if you don't stick to your promises and you don't give Kenyans what you promised during the campaign, you held it reliable and you are taken to court after your term.
Final on that?
Yeah, I want to say two things. One is that we will never develop if we are constantly being put to task to deal with entry-level problems. I think for a city, garbage disposal is an entry-level problem. For as long as people leave it to go and do what is it called, kind of benchmarking, to go and see what other cities that don't have garbage look like. Until we figured out how to deal with our issues, and then now we can start dealing with bigger things, kind of bigger problems. I also want to speak to, in general, the need for a national plan, not whatever people come up with and say that this is what we're going to be following for the next 5 years. This is what, and then the next group of people come in and now deliver a new branded plan, which we launch with fanfare, and then go, and that at the root of it all is the same problem of dealing with the garbage in Nairobi City, the garbage in wherever, the entry-level problems that we should not have to be dealing with 50-plus years after we got our independence.
Okay. I think that's why we're going to leave it as far as our newspaper review is concerned this morning. Thank you so much for making time. Dr. Njoki Ngumi, Director, Outreach and Partnerships at the Nest. Thank you so much. First time, hoping we'll see you plenty more times on the show. Asante sana. Honorable Caleb Amisi, MP Saboti, thank you so much for making time this morning. Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, MP Daragwa, thank you so much for making time this morning. We take a short break. Back on the other side, we get interactive. This is K24 This Morning.